Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you here for another English listening and comprehension practice video. The aim, as always, is to provide you with ample listening material, spoken at a natural pace, to help you improve your understanding of English, expand your vocabulary, and become more comfortable with the language. These videos are designed for a B2 level, meaning we'll use a wider range of vocabulary and more complex sentence structures than in an A2 video, but I will still aim for clarity and a conversational style. Remember, the more you listen, the better your ear will become at recognizing words and phrases in spoken English. Today's topic is one that many people around the world are passionate about: sports. Sports. Athletic activities, competition, teamwork, physical exertion, fans, victories, and defeats. It's a huge part of many cultures and people's lives. Now, sports is a topic that some of you listening might absolutely love. Perhaps you play sports regularly, or maybe you are a dedicated fan of a particular team or sport. For others, however, sports might not hold much interest at all. You might find it boring to watch or prefer other ways to spend your time. And that's perfectly fine. We all have different interests. But regardless of your personal feelings about sports, it's a common topic of conversation, and understanding it is helpful for language learning. For me personally, I have always been what you could describe as an athletic person. From a young age, I enjoyed moving my body, being active, and participating in physical activities. Because of this natural inclination, I gravitated towards sports and have generally liked them throughout my life, both playing and at times, watching. When I was young, growing up, I played a tremendous amount of sports. My childhood and teenage years were filled with practices, games, and training. I was eager to try different things, so I attempted to play almost all of the major sports that were popular in my area during my childhood. This gave me a broad experience with various types of athletic activities and helped me figure out what I enjoyed most and what I was best at. One of the very first organized sports I ever played was something called t-ball. You might not have heard of this sport before, especially if you're not from the United States, because it is primarily designed for very young children, usually as an introduction to baseball. I believe I played t-ball when I was around 4 or 5 years old. It's similar to baseball in its basic concept, hitting a ball and running around bases, but it's made much easier and simpler for little kids. Instead of a pitcher throwing the ball to the batter, the ball is placed on a stationary stand called a tee, hence the name t-ball. The child hits the ball off the tee and then runs to first base. There's less emphasis on complex rules and more on teaching the very basic mechanics of hitting, running, and fielding in a fun, low-pressure environment. It's less about competition and more about participation and learning fundamental coordination. I have very vague memories of playing t-ball, but I'm sure it was a good way to get introduced to team sports and physical activity at a very young age. After t-ball, as I got a little older, I started playing soccer. In the United States, soccer, which is called football in most other countries, is a very popular sport for children. Millions of kids play in youth leagues across the country. However, historically, soccer hasn't been as dominant or popular among adults in the U.S. as it is in many other parts of the world. While its popularity has grown significantly in recent decades, especially with the rise of Major League Soccer, MLS, and increased exposure to international leagues, it's still not on the same level as American football, basketball, or baseball in terms of mainstream adult fandom and participation. So, like many American kids, I played soccer for a few years when I was young, but it wasn't the sport I stuck with most passionately. In addition to soccer, I also played baseball, tennis, and basketball during my childhood and teenage years. These were the other major sports available and popular in my community. Trying all these different sports gave me a good sense of what I enjoyed and what skills they required. Out of all these sports I played when I was young, my absolute favorite was definitely basketball. I loved everything about it: the fast pace of the game, the vertical movement of jumping, the skill involved in dribbling and shooting, the teamwork required, and the excitement of scoring points. I continued playing basketball throughout middle school and high school, up until I was about 17 years old. Then, for various reasons, I stopped playing competitively. When I was in middle school, which is typically around ages 11-14, I was pretty tall for my age. This gave me a significant advantage when I played basketball. The other kids on the court were generally shorter than me. I was actually the tallest person on my middle school team. In basketball, being taller makes it easier to do many things: shoot over defenders, grab rebounds, catching the ball after a missed shot, block shots, and score near the basket. Because of my height advantage, I could score points relatively easily compared to my teammates and opponents. I could often just shoot right over smaller players or position myself close to the basket for easy shots. However, when I got into high school, ages 14-18, things started to change. The other kids, my peers, began to grow taller. They caught up to my height, and in some cases, surpassed it. Suddenly, I wasn't significantly taller than the other players anymore. This meant that scoring wasn't as easy as it used to be. I had to develop more refined skills like shooting from further away or using different techniques to get around defenders, which I hadn't needed as much when I could just rely on my height. The playing field, literally and figuratively, became more even in terms of physical size. Perhaps that shift in dynamic, combined with the increased competitiveness and time commitment of high school sports, was part of the reason why I eventually stopped playing basketball. It became harder, and maybe I didn't have the same level of natural advantage or perhaps the dedication needed to put in the extra work required at that higher level of competition when my height wasn't enough anymore. It's interesting how a physical trait can influence your experience in a sport, and how changes in that trait, or others catching up, require you to adapt or reconsider your involvement. I also played a lot of tennis when I was young. Tennis is a sport that requires a lot of skill, agility, and strategy. It's played individually or in pairs, doubles. My whole family really liked tennis. They played themselves and followed professional tournaments. Because of their interest, my parents encouraged and perhaps even made me play when I was young. I don't think I immediately loved it when I first started. Learning the strokes, the rules, and the footwork can be challenging and sometimes a bit frustrating at the beginning. But over time, as I got better and understood the game more, I began to like it more. I realized that I was actually pretty good at tennis. I took many lessons from coaches, which helped me develop proper technique. I also played in some different local tennis tournaments, which gave me experience with competitive play. Competing in tournaments was a different kind of pressure than just practicing, and it taught me how to perform under stress and how to handle both wins and losses. I reached a decent level in tennis and could hit the ball well and understand the strategy of playing points. However, despite becoming relatively good, I eventually quit playing tennis competitively. This was primarily because, as I mentioned, I was more focused on basketball at that time. My commitment to basketball practices and games left less time and energy for serious tennis training and tournaments. You often have to specialize in sports as you get older if you want to compete at a high level, and for me, that specialization was basketball. Interestingly, During my high school years, specifically when I was around 16 years old, I also considered playing another major American sport, American football. You might not know much about American football if you're not from the US, as it's quite different from soccer, which is called football elsewhere. American football is a contact team sport played with an oval ball on a rectangular field with goalposts at each end. It involves a lot of strategy, power, speed, and specialized roles for different players. It's probably the most popular sport for men in the United States, both in terms of participation, especially at the high school, and college level, and viewership. Super Bowl Sunday is practically an unofficial national holiday. Well, I also really liked watching American football, and I was intrigued by the idea of playing it. I wanted to try out for my high school football team. I joined their training sessions for some months before the season started, participating in practices to see if I could make the team. I found it physically demanding and required a different kind of toughness and discipline than basketball or tennis. However, I quickly realized that I wasn't truly serious about the level of commitment required to play high school football. The team practiced a lot, almost every single day, for several hours, plus weight training and film study. It was a massive time commitment, and honestly, I couldn't or didn't want to do that. I wasn't willing to dedicate that much of my time and energy to football practice, especially given my other interests and commitments, including basketball at the time. So, in the end, I didn't make the commitment and didn't play on the high school football team. My brief foray into football confirmed that while I liked the sport, I didn't have the intense passion or willingness to sacrifice the time needed to play it competitively. After high school, when my competitive team sports, like basketball and tennis, had ended, I started playing a different kind of sport, golf. Golf is a sport played individually, though often with others for company, where you hit a small ball into a series of holes on a course using different clubs, with the goal of getting the ball into each hole in the fewest possible strokes. Golf is often considered one of the most challenging sports, both mentally and physically, though in a different way than contact sports. In my opinion, golf is one of the funnest sports, but also one of the most frustrating. It's deceptively simple in its objective, hit the ball into the hole, but incredibly difficult to execute consistently well. It requires precise technique, focus, patience, and strategic thinking. It might be the hardest sport of all to truly master, or even just become consistently decent at. But that incredible difficulty is precisely what makes it so addicting for many people, including me. When you spend a lot of time trying to hit a small ball long distances with accuracy, and most of your shots are not perfect, the feeling you get when you do hit a good shot is immensely rewarding. When you strike the ball perfectly and it flies straight and far exactly where you intended, it feels amazing. You feel a surge of pride because you know from all your previous attempts and failures just how difficult it is to achieve that. Perfect contact and trajectory. That one good shot can keep you coming back for more, even after a string of bad ones. Conversely, golf can also be incredibly frustrating when you mess up, which happens frequently, even for experienced players. A slight error in your swing or judgment can send the ball in the wrong direction, into trees, into sand traps, bunkers, or even into water hazards. These bad shots can make you feel annoyed, angry, and disappointed, sometimes all at once. So, yes, sometimes golf is definitely not fun. It can feel like a constant battle against the ball, the course, and yourself. But when you have a good day on the course, when your shots are going well, when you're making putts, hitting the ball into the hole on the green. And the weather is nice, there's really nothing like it. It's a feeling of flow and accomplishment. The combination of being out in nature, the physical activity of walking the course, the mental challenge of the game, and the occasional perfect shot creates an experience that is, as I said, super addicting. It constantly challenges you to improve and rewards your efforts, albeit sometimes sparingly. I've had many frustrating rounds of golf, but the good days and the satisfying shots keep me wanting to play again. Nowadays, I honestly don't really play competitive team sports anymore, like basketball or tennis, and I don't play golf as often as I used to. My life is different now. I have different priorities and responsibilities. I simply don't have a lot of free time to dedicate to playing sports that require regular practice and significant blocks of time, like spending 4 hours on a golf course. Also, perhaps I don't have the exact same kind of competitive motivation that I had when I was younger, and sports were a central part of my social life and identity. Now, I'm more motivated by other things: my work, my family, other hobbies, and personal development. However, this doesn't mean I never engage in sports or physical activities. I still enjoy being active, and I definitely still enjoy playing sports from time to time, even if it's just casually. Kicking a soccer ball around, shooting hoops, hitting tennis balls, or going to a driving range to hit golf balls can still be fun and a good way to stay active and blow off some steam. It's just not the central focus of my life anymore. Now, let's switch gears slightly and talk about watching sports. For many people, their engagement with sports is primarily as a spectator rather than a participant. Some people genuinely prefer watching sports to playing them. They enjoy following teams, analyzing games, and experiencing the drama and excitement of competition from the stands or in front of a screen. I can relate to this because I used to love watching sports, perhaps even more intensely than I do now. When I was younger, I was probably a little too obsessed with certain sports and teams. My emotional state could genuinely be affected by whether my favorite team won or lost. It was probably not the healthiest thing, spending so much time and energy being emotionally invested in the performance of professional athletes I didn't know personally. My favorite American football team when I was younger was the Seattle Seahawks. I followed them religiously and watched every single one of their games, either on television or sometimes attending games in person if I had the chance. I knew all the players, the coaches, the team's history. I would get incredibly excited and nervous when they made it to the playoffs, the postseason tournaments that determine the champion. And I celebrated like crazy, truly jubilantly, when they actually won the Super Bowl, the championship game of American football, a few years ago. It felt like my team had achieved something amazing, even though I had nothing to do with it. Looking back, while it was fun to be so passionate, I do think I spent too much time and emotional energy being a football fan. I was also a very big fan of the Los Angeles Lakers basketball team when I was younger. They are a famous team in the NBA, National Basketball Association. I was lucky because during my childhood and teenage years, the Lakers were very successful. I got to see them win the NBA championship 5 times during that period. Watching their star players and the team's success was very inspiring for a young kid who loved basketball. Like many young basketball fans, I used to dream of one day playing for the Lakers when I got older, wearing that famous purple and gold jersey. Of course, that dream didn't come true, but it was a powerful motivation for my own playing. These days, my intense focus on watching those specific teams and sports has faded significantly. I don't really watch American football anymore with the same dedication. My Sundays aren't planned around the Seahawks game schedule. Similarly, I don't follow the LA Lakers or professional basketball with the same passion I once had. However, there is one sport that I do still watch regularly, and that is soccer, football. I think I started getting more seriously into watching soccer as an adult. As I mentioned before, I played it as a kid, but preferred other sports. But as I got older, I began to appreciate the global nature of soccer, the different leagues and teams around the world, and the strategic and technical aspects of the game. It's definitely my favorite sport to watch now. I follow certain leagues and tournaments, and I enjoy watching talented players from different countries. It's a sport that has a different rhythm and flow compared to American football or basketball, and I find myself really appreciating the skill and tactics involved. Besides the more normal or mainstream sports, I've also had brief experiences with what might be considered extreme sports or action sports. These are activities that often involve higher speeds, heights, or physical challenges, and can sometimes carry more risk. Two examples of these that I've tried are skateboarding and snowboarding. I used to skateboard quite a lot when I was in high school. Skateboarding involves riding and performing tricks on a skateboard. It's a very popular subculture, often associated with urban environments and specific styles of music and fashion. I spent many hours with my friends at skate parks or just practicing in parking lots or on the street. We even filmed some amateur skate videos with our friends, trying to capture our often failed attempts at tricks. I would honestly say that I was never really good at skateboarding. I could ride around, do some basic maneuvers, and maybe a few simple tricks, but I never reached a high level of skill. I always had immense respect for people who could do complex flips, grinds, and aerials. I liked being part of the skateboarding scene and culture, and I liked the physical activity, but I always liked watching other people do amazing tricks that I couldn't do more than trying them myself. As for snowboarding, which involves riding a board down a snow-covered slope, I've only gone 3 times in my life. Snowboarding is similar to skateboarding or surfing in terms of balancing on a board, but it's done on snow and involves navigating a mountain. My first time snowboarding was, as expected, not very easy. I fell down dozens of times. Learning to control the board, turn, and stop without falling over takes time and practice. My wrists and backside were quite sore after that first day. However, the second and third times I went snowboarding were much better. Once I started to understand the basic techniques, how to shift my weight, how to edge the board to turn and stop, how to link turns smoothly, it suddenly became really fun. It went from a frustrating experience of constantly falling to an exhilarating feeling of gliding down the mountain, carving turns in the snow. It felt like unlocking a new skill and experiencing a freedom of movement on the slope. I was by no means an expert, but I could manage to get down the mountain in control and enjoy the ride. I really enjoyed those later snowboarding trips, and I can't wait to go snowboarding again someday. It's a fantastic way to be active outdoors in the winter and experience the beauty of snowy mountain landscapes. So, from t-ball and basic soccer, as a child through competitive team sports and individual pursuits like tennis and golf in my youth and early adulthood, to trying action sports like skateboarding and snowboarding, sports have played a significant role in my life, both as a participant and a spectator. My involvement and interests have changed over time, reflecting different stages of life and evolving preferences. While I'm not currently as deeply involved in playing or watching as I once was, I still appreciate the value of sports for physical health, mental challenge, social connection, and entertainment. Okay, I think that covers my history and experience, with various sports in quite a lot of detail. Hopefully, this extended discussion has been helpful for your B2 English listening practice. By expanding on the simpler original script, we were able to explore many more aspects of the topic and use a wider range of vocabulary and sentence structures. Now it's your turn. I would love to hear about your experiences and interests in sports. Leave a comment below and tell me what your favorite sport is. Is it a sport you play, a sport you watch, or perhaps both? What do you like about it? Did you play sports when you were young? Are you a fan of any particular teams or athletes? Or perhaps you are not a big sports fan at all and you prefer other activities. Whatever your perspective, feel free to share it. Your comments are great practice for your English writing and also interesting for me and other learners to read. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I really appreciate you taking the time to practice your English with me. Keep up the good work. I'll see you in the next video.